Hello, everyone. I'm Ruth from PDA North America. So happy to have you all here today for our Q&A with my dear friend, Sunita Theiss, and I will let her give herself an introduction, and then we will start with the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Sunita. I am a PDA autistic ADHD adult parenting neurodivergent kids, one of whom is definitely PDA and one who probably is, but we are still clarifying. And I had a background in sort of like corporate marketing and communications. For a long time, I expected my career to go all the way up towards the C-suite kind of. And after having our first kid, I decided I didn't want that. Even before we had like diagnoses and clarification, like just something in my gut said like we have to pivot, we have to do something different. And so over time, I have shifted, mostly downshifted my career to the point where like I worked for myself very part-time. I am homeschooling in a very relaxed way, and yeah, I'm excited to be here and chat about all of that a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So we have collected all of the Q&A in advance. So our first question was, is there a financial impact on your family of the career downshift, and how are you navigating that? Are you still able to access the services and activities your children need to be successful humans?
Um, yeah, I think I have to start by saying like we are uniquely privileged that we both had to full time sort of with a lot of margin to move up in our careers jobs before we had children. And so and then we've had kind of flexibility in the career paths we're in. And so despite that, yeah, there have certainly been financial impacts. We were really lucky that we were able to buy a house and put very little down in 2017 before we had kids. And so we could not reasonably buy our house that we're living in right now today with the income that we have and the interest rates where they are. And so I think that's like sort of a providential thing on top of the privileged position we're in. But we are able to access a lot of services. We have health insurance through my husband's job. Our state also has Medicaid waivers for a number of different disabilities, including autism. I haven't had to pursue that because the process is frankly like a really big demand on my brain, and so we've opted to sort of cut our budget in other areas. I think the biggest thing for us is like it's like my husband's an attorney, and one of his friends are, they're law firm lawyers, and they're making buku amounts of money, and they're driving really expensive cars and going on these really luxurious vacations. Like we're driving old cars, and we're living an hour away from the city, and we uh go on dates, and they're like a lot of the fluff got cut out of our lives because that gave us room to do the bare minimum. One of the things that's been helpful to me too, and this is like sort of a sidebar to this question, is that I was really lucky that I had an employer when I was deciding I wanted to scale like significantly down who said we would rather have you a little bit than not at all. And so she was willing to be flexible with me when I was like a full-time communications director for this organization. And she said, "How much can you give us?" And I said, "I think I can give you like 10 hours a week." And then at one point I was only working 10 hours a month for them. Um, as we've been more regulated in my house, I've scaled up a little bit, which gives us a little more margin for like fun stuff in our life. But it's kind of a like we have to take each season as it comes, and there's just not a lot of room for extra.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. And I can speak a little, I have similar experience with my life and our life kind of downshifting and upshifting and kind of all over,
Yeah.
certainly not linear for us. I have, I'm privileged to have a partner that we're raising our kids together, but I have been stay-at-home momming very unexpectedly, for the last few years while he's taking the lion's share of the work. And in July, he was very suddenly laid off and realized he's also ADHD and PDA autistic, and he realized he was in a very severe burnout when he was laid off, and he was just not able to go back to work. So we were in a very, very tough situation of losing our insurance through his work provider and trying to
Hmm.
figure out what life looks like. So we had a very kind of like sudden, we have to figure this out. And for us, I ended up going back, kind of scaling my work up a little bit more, taking more freelance. Like we both have just tried. It's been a big like figuring it out, but talking about kind of like services and activities for our children to be successful humans. We had to get a little humble, and we made the decision that we need to take care of not only our kids but ourselves. And we decided, instead of putting my husband, who was the lion's share of our income, back in the workforce, we're giving him that time and space, and we just put our family on Medicaid. We got whatever services in place that we can. We did have to scale back on some of the activities. We're not doing a lot of Our kids aren't able to do a ton of extracurriculars, but both of our children are PDA, but we were able to we scaled back on like gymnastics classes, and we're finding more free things in the community. And there's
Right.
so many free opportunities that are out there that we're finding. Maybe they're an hour away instead of in our town for like neurodivergent children, um, that are more accessible for us. So it has, it right now looks how we would have never imagined. I never imagined I'd be working full time for PDA North America. I never even saw myself working for a nonprofit. Like that was not my background at all. But it has been a lot of just like being able to step back and look at, okay, I might not be working in corporate America in a marketing position, but what are the skill sets I've gained through all the things that I've done? And honestly, like I think a lot of you on this call, or maybe everybody, is a parent, and like being able to say, what skills have I gained through raising my kids, and like what skills through the advocacy work that I'm doing. You'd just be really surprised about what you can kind of figure out and put together for yourself. And that's kind of how it's been for us, is kind of cobbling it together.
Yeah. Well, and another thing, like, so you're talking about choosing to care for yourself. So we have been doing several therapies a week between both of our kids for the better part of 4 years. And we were like, and until you meet your deductible, those copays are insane. Um, and I looked at my husband last year, and I was like, I need a break. I need a break from the logistics, from the sort of struggle back and forth to get out the door, to come home. One kid's at an appointment, the other one's having a meltdown in the waiting. Like I was like, my brain can't keep doing this. Like I'm not well. We're as a couple not well. And so we decided to keep setting that money aside, like in our HSA account, but we're in this season using it for couples counseling.
Mhm.
Um, and it was not a like impulsive decision. I talked to all of our providers, all of our OTs and speech therapists and everybody, and I just said, like, can we just pause? And can we come back in 12 months or 6 months or whatever it takes? Because we need space. I need space. Like I'm noticing my all of my executive functioning is going to just like making a schedule of how the week needs to go.
Sure.
Um, and so that's another thing that like, and I know we're privileged to be able to like go to counseling and to have insurance that covers things. And but it was one of those things where I was like, we need to figure out how to do this together more effectively.
Mhm.
Otherwise it doesn't, because it doesn't matter if your kids are getting 1,000 therapies, if you're not regulated as the parent and the provider, and if you have a partner, that you're not on the same team. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be on the same page 24/7. We are almost never. I think the Gottmans have said that like even the most successful couples disagree about like 60% of things that are like core values. And so like we're just trying to get in that like 40% sweet spot. Like, are we on the same page about approximately 1/3 to 2/5 of the things that we have to decide about in our lives? And can we
Yeah.
communicate effectively about the rest? And like, it's hard because like I'm home alone with our kids all the time, and I'm trying to squeeze in moments for work and schedules, and like we just you kind of lose each other
Yeah.
um in a relationship. And so I'd love to like go away for a weekend. We'll be married for 10 years this year. I don't know, like, I don't know if that's going to happen this year. Maybe by the time we hit 20, right? Like,
Um,
but we can find ways to like hang out at home and play board games and like, but it's just in those moments, like, are we still able to connect? Are we still able to be together? And it hit a point where I was like, none of this therapy, none of these appointments, none of this is serving a purpose if they're not coming home and we're not well too.
sure. Another resource I did want to mention because Sunita briefly mentioned it is I know a lot of kids that or a lot of family people that are just discovering PDA don't yet have an autism diagnosis or don't have an autism diagnosis. And the value in getting that diagnosis for my family was the resources from the state that can come from it. So, and that was another thing that like is enabling us to be able to like downshift more when within I'm in the state of Indiana and there is an autism waiver that waives all income. So there is,
Oh wait.
oh, are you dropping a link in there? Yep.
Yeah, but I like totally typoed it. Here's the right
Oh.
link.
So we have a state waiver that gives us, it will waive our income and my kids will get Medicaid with an autism diagnosis through the age of 18. It will also give them an additional like $20,000 of services each year. So that aren't necessarily covered within a waiver. So like music therapy and different kinds of things it can cover. And so definitely look for resources like that if you're looking to downshift. Another thing that was an incredible resource that has totally allowed us to do this as well is that in Indiana, and I think this is in a lot of states as well, there's something called the Education Support Account. And if your child has an IEP, if your child is home, if your child is homeschooled and IEP, you can basically get the money that was going to be given to the school and given to the parents, and it goes into this account that you can use for like any educational things. We can use it for gymnastics classes we learned, like we can use, and it's like for us with a child on an IEP, I think we get anywhere from like $15,000 to $20,000 a year. And it's not money that goes taxed. It's not taxable income. It's not income. It's just money you can use to spend on your children to like enrich their lives. So very, very valuable thing that we would never have been able to even like step into this life of letting my husband stay home if we did not have that resource. So that's why I always pushed people to like, if you don't have the diagnosis, the why for me was to be able to get access to these resources. And that's why we pushed to get IEPs for our kids as well, even though we've decided we're not probably going to do public school. All right, I'm going to shush so we can get on to another question.
Yeah, I just Googled and put a link in that has like the list of the states that have some variation. This seems like a very like school choice
It is.
organization. I'm sorry, hang on one second.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. You know, thanks for asking. Um, we
Okay.
needed to watch a specific show right
Yeah.
now, but we
Uh,
are we are set. Um,
Okay, next question is, can you share industry agnostic resources for ideas on how we can bring in some income while on a downshift? I'm hoping to explore supporting other parents of neurodiverse kids during my own downshift. What advice would you have to get me started, and how did you find the space?
I'm gonna answer them backwards.
Sure.
Um, so I found PDA North America just Googling. So we had an OT in 2020, maybe mention PDA to us as a like, have you explored this? Have you heard of this? We are learning about it. We're not diagnosing your child, but it may be useful for you to look at. And and so at the time, I found a bunch of UK based resources. Eventually, PDA North America came across my radar. I think it was a brand new, like the conference was brand new back then. Um, and so kind of like what this person's saying, like I think I benefited significantly from the resources for a few years, and then I wanted to plug in. So like I reached out to Ruth, I started writing for the blog. We've done, just been supportive however I can. If you want to support other parents of neurodivergent kids, make sure you're supporting yourself first. And so like when I say that, I don't mean like do like like if, I mean, if going to a spa is your vibe, then like do that. But like for me, like I don't like being touched. But like the like figure out what you need to be sort of attuned to your own needs and your children's needs before pouring into other people. You can only support other people out of an abundance of what you have within yourself. Um, so I love that. And I also like immediately I want to be like, are you taking care of yourself well before you're doing that? And if you have a partner, are you supporting each other well? Do you feel connected? Because you will burn yourself out if you don't have that capacity. And capacities perpetually fluctuate, especially if you're a neurodivergent parent too, but just be mindful. And then the last question was industry agnostic ideas for income. Um, I think it depends a lot on like what I don't know how to be totally agnostic. I think it depends on your background and your skill set. And a lot of skill sets are transferable from industry to industry. So like I have a journalism degree and I worked in marketing and communications. And so like I try to do things that have to do with writing and marketing, but like there are a lot of skills in terms of like interpersonal abilities, in terms of like being being engaging interpersonally, like you know, all these things that you can tie in and apply to a lot of different jobs. I would say start with like where you are now and ask if there's flexibility, if there's a way to be a contractor, if there's a way to be part-time. Um, put feelers out in your network and in your industry for that. Like I kind of have now, after moving towards this for about 5 years, like nope, longer than that, almost seven. Um, I have like a roster of like clients that I work with every month, and then occasionally additional projects come on my plate. But it took me a long time to cultivate those relationships, and a lot of it was just me reaching out to people I'd worked with before and been like, "Hey, do you need any support in this? Here's a skill set I can offer you. Um, if you would like it, I can send you more about me, my resume, my portfolio, whatever it was, um, and then think of me, and then you kind of like you want to leverage as much of your personal network as you can. Um, if you are a neurodivergent parent, there's also a couple of really great Facebook groups that I am in about just like career support for neurodivergent adults, because like just navigating those dynamics is different. The way you answer questions in an interview, you think you are being like very precise in your language, and they're like, this is so off-putting. And so like learning those conversational patterns and dynamics have been really helpful to me. And I think also like the other thing I've done is like I just kind of had to expand what I was willing to do. So like I never wanted to do websites, but like I do that for somebody now, and it's a skill set I'm building. So like I could do that for people more in the future if I wanted to, but it's something that's flexible that I can kind of do when my kids are sleeping or watching TV. Um, I don't have to have a lot of meetings. Most of it can be done over email. So like I don't know, I should have been talking for a really long time, but that's kind of what I'm thinking is like get creative in your space, talk to your network, figure out ways to get on people's radars as
Yeah.
someone like if you're I don't know, like I was talking to somebody a few days ago about being a nurse and sort of shifting to like a per diem PRN thing, which is they're really hard jobs to get, but they pay really well. And once you're sort of on a hospital's radar, like they'll call you and then you have margin, but you don't have to work every day.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would add to that is just like be willing to be vulnerable sometimes too, because for myself, the only reason I work for PDA North America, my last job was managing a boutique luxury hotel in upstate New York. And now I'm the first full-time employee of PDA North America. And it's because I went to the conference and I walked up to Diane afterwards, never met her before, and just said, how can I help? How can I volunteer? And I spent the first year just volunteering for PDA North America, getting to know it, spending the hours I could spend. And then um, I'm also the person that like I have a degree in anthropology, and then I worked in corporate marketing with never taking a single business class in my life, and then managed a hotel, never working in hospitality before. So really like taking a step back and like looking what your skill sets are, looking at, where are your strengths? Where do you want to focus your energy? I read this book a few years ago. It was called Pivot by Jenny Blake, and it was all about how to like pivot your career when you're not doing what you want to be doing and kind of how to make the life for yourself that you want. And I had time in my life to do that because I didn't have PDA children. But yeah, I think it's, vulnerability can really go a long way when you really put yourself out there. My husband even just like put it out there on Facebook Friends saying like, hey, here's our situation. Is there anything that anybody's got that I could do maybe 10 hours a week? Because that's all I got to give. And
Yeah. And even with like my job where I was the comms director and then I scaled down, like if I had just said, here's my notice and not told her why, like I wouldn't still be working for them. But
Mhm.
I said, hey, I have this, I had a kid with support needs. I was pregnant with a second. I was feeling overwhelmed. And I said, I love you working for you. I love the work this organization is doing. And I can't do it 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And so like what can we do? Is there anything? And so she was like, well, what if you work like 15 hours a week for us? And then I went down to 10. And then I went down to 10 hours a month when I had an infant and a PDAer who was melting down multiple times a day. And now I'm up to 30 hours a month with them. And like maybe I'll scale back down or scale, you know what I mean? It's like, but she's made it clear they value me enough to have me on board in whatever capacity I can. And they were willing to get creative. So the other thing is like be vulnerable and then ask for flexibility. And if your employer can't give you flexibility, like I guarantee there is a place somewhere in the world that will want to work with you, and you just have to keep, I don't know, like just keep putting yourself out there. And it sucks like to put post on Facebook and be like, we are having a hard time and we need
Mhm.
some support. And people come alongside you sometimes in ways you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Someone asks, how do you not feel like a prisoner when someone else is guiding your destiny and lack of career? I feel helpless and like the years of college degrees and money is worthless. And now that I can't work, I'm caregiving for my PDA son instead, and it's very hard.
That is so hard. um I think the only way past grief is through it. And like that sounds like something you would needle point, but it's like so true. um I think there's a lot of skill sets that this person has probably developed that they're using and not even realizing it. Um, I've had to manage multiple projects in my career, and I think that's why we can juggle all the things that we're juggling as a family. I also think like be honest about what feels hard, and if you don't have supportive people around you locally, I know PDA North America has support groups. I know there are a lot of different communities for parents. Um, I you can't do it alone.
Mhm.
And I don't get to see people in real life very often. Um, like in a without my kids. My husband facilitates that, but if even if you don't have a supportive partner, like just plug into people. Like Ruth and I text probably every day, right? And sometimes it's like, look at this thing my kid did. And sometimes it's about work. And sometimes it's just like, hi, I'm alive. Are you alive? And like having a person to do that with, to say, hey, this season of life I'm in is 100% necessary and it's exhausting. And I feel like I have wasted the last 10 years of my education and my career. Um, and just to be seen like can take that off. So if you need support finding people to see you, reach out to Ruth, reach out to me. I think we could probably point you in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that like I was at this point, I was this person. My job, I lived in New York City for 20 years and was very career driven, marketing industry again. I don't know how I got there from an anthropology degree, but when I got pregnant, I have twins. My PDAers are twins, and I got pregnant, had a very hard pregnancy. Our whole plan, I mean, I had my whole life set up. And before PDA even came into my life, I had my kids very premature. And my husband was going to be a stay-at-home dad, and we had to flip-flop. My kids were born sick. I all of a sudden had to quit my job, and my whole life like was exploded. And then COVID happened, and then PDA happened. So I feel this deeply. And I was in a very hard place like this. But I will say, the more I've been down this road of accommodating PDA and figuring it out and figuring out what works for our family and coming to a deep place of acceptance of what our life looks like now versus what we wanted our life to look like. I don't just say that just like what our parenting life, but like what my career looks like, what my husband's career looks. I mean, it's like I hear the term radical acceptance used a lot in this space, and it's like everything had to be a total place of radical acceptance for us. And I'm at a place where like the first time in my life with kids, we've hit homeostasis, which feels crazy, but like everybody's okay right now. And it does get better. And I know that yeah, like Sunita said, please reach out if you need somebody to talk to or want some guidance along the way. Um, and Sunita, oh, did you get that Facebook group in there? Okay, great.
Yeah, I did.
Perfect. Okay. Probably our last question was, I would like to know how you find time for yourself on your own intellectual pursuits without getting lost in the identity as a PDA parent.
Um, in the margins and in fits and starts, I think is how it goes. I'm lucky that one of my ways to decompress is to write, and that sometimes happens like in a note on my phone, um, while I have like a child climbing on me or needing to like be touching my body while we're watching something. And so I'm like back here just like typing, and then
Gotta love technology. Oh, she said her whole computer is frozen. Pinwheels of death. Oh man. I can try and answer this one. Hopefully she'll be back on in a minute here, but so the question was how you find time for yourself and your own intellectual pursuits without getting lost in the identity as a PDA parent. I think this one is a really great question. For me, it's a little hard for me because the way my autistic brain shows up is my special interest has become PDA. So I have dug in like so deep, and this has become my intellectual pursuits. And so I think that I've been fortunate in that. However, I can say for my husband, this is not his intellectual pursuits. He is also autistic, but he does not have any interest in really diving into this. And he honestly finds that the only time he gets is after our kids go to bed, which I know is not everybody's journey because I know a lot of children have a lot of PDA children have a lot of issues with sleep in general. But we have made sure to be really intentional about being okay, like not being together in the evenings sometimes. We both need our own space, and like that's okay. Like we are intentional in having like trying to have something that feels like a date a month, and beyond that, it's like the rest of it will fall into place. I would say at least 4 or 5 nights a week, he goes and listens to music as soon as the kids go to bed, and like music is his deep interest, and he spends his time listening to podcasts and music and doing all of that on his own while I'm honestly watching a lot of crap reality TV because that's how I decompress my brain. But I think Sunita just joined us again. I saw her join the room.
okay, so yeah, I stay up late a lot. Like that's honestly what I do. I tend to work after my kids go to bed, and sometimes I will not work and I will just write or like doodle or read something that only I want to read or listen to music only I want to listen to. And like being PDA myself too, like finding like really like silly and benign ways to like equalize in my day-to-day life. So like I play pranks on my husband, which he loves, totally just thinks it's the best thing ever. And um, but it's like I think I think it's very easy to take all of this very seriously. The parenting, the support needs, the anxiety, and we should take it seriously. But I think it's also really important to like find ways to like goof off and blow off steam um and so maybe you can't go to the gym, but you can like do a video workout at home, or maybe you can't read a book for hours, but you can like give yourself 10 minutes before bed, or I don't get to write as much as I would like, but I still try to squeeze in a little bit a couple times a week. If you like cooking and baking, like maybe you find something that doesn't take as much time. Like I love baking bread, and I have just started using the like quick rising yeast because I just don't have time to spend all day waiting for dough to rise. But I'm still gonna bake the bread if I want to. And sometimes I'm gonna say I'm not baking the bread. And so yeah, so I think just finding ways that feel like almost like, even if it's just like it feels like an echo of the thing you used to love, because it'll connect you to yourself.
Yeah, I think that's great. I said a lot of what you said while you dropped off, so trying to
Oh,
find the
perfect.
yeah. Thank you so much everybody for being here. Thank you, Sunita, for jumping back on. Um,
Thank you for being flexible when my technology went on the fritz.
no, you'll never find a more understanding community than PDA North America. But thanks everybody for coming, and we will see you all at the next one. Hopefully, take care.
Thank you.
Mhm.